let me remember the numbers. 12 inches of rain in 2022, which was the lowest we've ever had. And this year we're sitting at 62 inches of rain, wow, which is one of the highest. And then we got these storms coming through again. Mm-hmm. So, and just, unbelievable. Yep. Let me see. I need to get on the. Okay, Greg. Big Hammer Wines is not a winery, I don't think. But I thought it was. I don't know what it is. I thought it was too, but then I was looking at the website.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
Wow,
4, 3, 2,
Countdown.
1. Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go.
This is All About Wine, the talk show dedicated to the wine industry since 2009. Featuring winemaker, cellar master, vineyardist, and tasting expert, Ron.
Basically what we're trying to do on this program is just trying to educate people and trying to make wine less confusing and more friendly.
From coast to coast and around the world.
We really have had some neat people on the program. I love that.
Post your questions and comments during the live show on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/allaboutwinebtr. Again, that's www.facebook.com/allaboutwinebtr. And now, All About Wine is on. Here's Ron.
Hey, and Mike, we're back.
Yeah, definitely.
We had ourselves a couple weeks, well, I don't want to say vacation because it was not. 2 weeks ago, Blog Talk Radio did the same thing they did about a month and a half ago by not connecting for us. So we rescheduled that guest. And then last week, we were part of the Hurricane Helene that went through. And it's a good thing we canceled because I was on the computer Thursday evening about the time the show went on, and I lost power, well, not off forever, but enough to turn off the computer, and I had to reboot everything. So if we were on the show, it would have really caused us problems. So we rescheduled that guest. And we're hooked up tonight. First public service announcement. Hurricane Helene has been horrible to different places. On the coast of Florida, from Fort Myers, basically all the way up around the Panhandle, they have been flooded. There's been devastation. It continued on into the Carolinas, as everyone I'm sure knows. Point being, if you are so inclined, donate. American Red Cross, the best place to go to it. They're reputable, and give them some money. And they have a site that's dedicated just to the hurricane relief. So if you are one of those that donates, and I sort of wish you are, I've put some money into it because, the devastation is unbelievable. I have a friend that lives up there. Her and her husband live up in that area, and it's unbelievable, the devastation. So if you are so inclined, American Red Cross, Hurricane Relief, and they will get the money out there to the areas and the peoples that need it. So thank you for that. We have a guest tonight, Greg Martellotto. I think I pronounced that right. We'll find out in a minute here. He's sitting in the green room having all the snacks and wine and all the stuff we have in there for him. So we'll have to have him put everything down and join us on the program. So welcome to All About Wine, Greg.
Hi, Ron. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing quite well. And yourself?
Pretty good. I'm in sunny San Diego, so I can't complain. Far away from the ravages of hurricane season, thankfully.
Oh boy, I tell you, it's nasty. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it and all that. It's wiped out towns and up there in Carolinas. they live in valleys, and no place for the water to go but right through the valley, and it was just unbelievable. There was a perfect storm. They had a storm coming in from the west, and then the hurricane came up from the south, and just gave them more water than the valley could handle, and it was a devastating blow to them. So, but is it Martellotto, your last name?
That's right. Yeah, Martellotto is the American pronunciation, and that works.
I'm American. That's how I pronounce it.
As am I.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Well, the only reason I did it is because I just got back from Italy. I'm Italian American, obviously, with a long last name with a bunch of vowels and stuff. Right. But when I'm in Italy, no one ever asks me how to spell my name or pronounce it or anything. Here, I have to spell it 2 or 3 times.
I can imagine.
The challenges of having an 11-letter last name.
There you go. My last name is Hunt. And, it's surprising, though. I do have to spell that a lot because people say, what's your last name? I go, Hunt. And they think I say, huh. And they repeat it. What's your last name? I go, Hunt, H-U-N-T. And they go, oh. But it's, even with the short name, sometimes you're always repeating it and spelling it. So, Big Hammer Wines. Tell us about that.
Yes.
Well, first,
yes. Well,
tell us about your story up to this point. How did you get to the point where you found Big Hammer Wines?
Yeah. So, on the topic of my last name in Italian means big hammer. So that's yes. Martello is a hammer, and lotto is a suffix that says it's a larger hammer. So
that's cool.
Yes. So there is a reason for that name. The brief background is I've been at this wine game as a career of passion, a calling of sorts, for about 25 years now.
Wow.
And I've kind of done just about everything in the business. I started out brokering wines because I was broke, and so I figured, well, if I could at least connect buyers and sellers, I could make a commission, and did that for a few years, realized it's a rather broken model, and decided, if I formed my own import distribution company, then I could set pricing and make more margin and not be beholden to the suppliers or other people. Because what happened was I was in Southern California, and I represented a winery that was featured in the Sideways movie 22 years ago, however long that was ago now. And that winery, once it blew up, it got all this film and attention, decided, thanks for your help for the last couple of years, but we're going to go ahead and start selling direct because now we have our own traction. And so I was left out in the cold, and I was like, geez, this sucks. And so realized I should probably take more control and opened a distribution company. Again, still relatively broke and not knowing what I was doing, but realized that lesson. And then at the same time, I went and worked as someone's assistant, Mike Roth, a friend of mine who is a winemaker to this day in Santa Barbara and one of the top winemakers in that region, and really kind of learned the art of winemaking over several harvests where I was his assistant, and then started bottling some of my own wine along the way. Fast forward to 2009, in the midst of the Great Recession, and I was selling wine to distributors, I was selling wine to restaurants, and many of them were going out of business, and I was getting stuck holding the bottle, as you could say, and left with a warehouse full of wine. I said, maybe I should just start selling online direct to consumer. Then I don't have to chase money, and I could just develop my own clients. So 2009, Big Hammer Wines has now been online for 15 years.
Wow.
And, what started as kind of this small regional business was injected with steroids in the pandemic when everyone was locked down. and our online store blew up, and it's been a wild ride for the last 4 or 5 years as the business has grown significantly.
Wow, I think in 2009, the same year that we started All About Wine on online doing our podcast. That's both of us been doing the same amount of time on this. So, Big Hammer Wine. What is, you say you sell directly to the consumer. What do you sell to consumer? How do you contact consumer? How do you? What is the whole working model here of what you're doing?
Well, the business is really quite simple in terms of our model. Our model since day one has been to exploit the inefficiencies in the wine business. So the inefficiencies I'm referring to are specifically around the outdated, sort of moded, 3-tiered, and in some states the 4-tier system where you have multiple middlemen that add costs and margin to wine. And in California, we have this very important wine industry that has successfully lobbied for much more liberal laws, whereby, uniquely in California, I am able to own a winery, which I do in Santa Barbara. So I have a winery license. I have an import distribution license. And I have an online retail sales license, which allows me to ship to multiple states in a compliant manner. And our model is simple. It's like a Costco model. It's the way most people who heard of Costco, they know this wholesale business is about buying in bulk and passing on the discount. And that's exactly what we do. So we import pallets. We focus on 90-plus rated quality wines from quality winemakers and family wineries for the most part. Our motto is kind of like, no more grocery store wines, because I probably don't have to explain to you, but you probably know that 6 or 7 distributors in the U.S. control 75 to 80% of the wine market, and a half dozen or 8 or 10 wineries in California, the Gallows, the large producers that are occupying 8 to 9 out of 10 wine selections in the grocery store. And consumers are sort of limited in those options, and 2 out of 3 bottles in America are sold in grocery stores. So all of this leads to inefficiency and a ton of outstanding quality wine from family vineyards, not only from California, but from elsewhere around the world, that are kind of left out in the cold. So we develop direct relationships with these wineries, and we make deals with them on volume, on pallets of wine, and then we send out emails to our list on a daily basis, kind of a deal of the day model, and we sell a lot of wine in this way.
Wow. It sounds like a great plan. I don't like the 3-tier system. I am not a fan of it. I never have been a fan of it. When I owned the winery, I had the luxury of owning all 3 licenses: distributor, manufacturer, and retail. And it was, I don't know how I got by it, but they gave me the 3 licenses. And Southern Wine and Spirits was not thrilled in the fact that I had all 3 licenses. But the 3-tier system, it adds cost to everything. And I tell people all the time, that's the main thing about it. You are paying more so you can pay the middleman. So if you can get away from that middleman on any type of sales or anything like Big Hammer, it's a great way to do it.
I've written elsewhere about this whole history, and certainly the repeal of prohibition had an interesting history. There was why did we get into prohibition in the first place? Well, it was certainly related to some of my fellow Italian Americans, the mobsters, from 90 to 100 years ago who were occupying all of the tiers. If they didn't control the means of manufacturing, they controlled the means of distribution, i.e. the trucks, and then they controlled the means of sale, so the retailers or the bars, the saloons, and if they didn't own them, they extracted a fee to protect them or to make sure they were pouring the liquor of choice. And so that was why the 3-tier came about. It was to break the stranglehold that mobsters had put on the liquor business. And it was determined by our Christian country, our background, that alcohol was a sin, that it was causing the demise of society. And if people don't know that history, then they're failing to recognize that much of that story from 100 years is being borne out again today in a similar way between people who have called alcohol sinful and people who are now hiding under the guise of alcohol is all bad at any level. And it's a wonderful repetition of history. So that's a whole other conversation, Ron, but maybe
believe me,
for the next time.
I would love to get into that with you too. It's interesting. I've hit on it on the show before, and it's something I've looked at and searched through and all. It's especially what's happening now. Like you say, there's maybe 6 or 7 big companies that control almost all the wineries, and not just here in the United States, but Gallo is a good example. You mentioned they have their fingers in wineries in France, Italy, Germany, Spain, everywhere, and they're just one example. And when you start looking at just the few that do control everything, it starts becoming that monopoly again, that becomes expensive for people. And people need to understand that they're not out to look after us, they're out to look after themselves.
Yeah, it's sort of, we also were going to talk today about kind of labeling laws in the U.S. and how those things have failed to adapt to the modern era. Do you want to dive into that topic?
Sure. Yeah. I've talked about labels and the possibilities of full disclosure on labels, which I am against. Yeah. But sure, it's go.
Did you
go
say
ahead.
You're against it? Is that what you said?
I'm against a full disclosure. I mean, you would have pages and pages of things with the minute things that are in wine, and
our position is more of additives, not of like listing the 300 types of molecules. It's more about what are the additives. If there's something other than grapes and sulfur, which are the current things that are the only requirements to be on the label, should people be advised? My argument, and it'll be interesting to have this conversation with you because I think we're on different sides of it, at least at present. My argument is much of the wine in the United States coming from those large mega winery producers is very much manufactured. I call it paint by number one wines.
Yeah.
So they are following a formula that does in fact involve some additives that are regularly used. Some of the additives that people may have heard of are things like mega purple and mega red, which are concentrates of certain grapes that add sugar and artificially color the wine. Some people may have had this experience where they put these wines in their mouth and they're smooth, they lack acidity or edges. And smooth is sort of like a buzzword term for some wine drinkers. And then they're left with this kind of purple tongue, and they're wondering, even purple lips, and they're wondering, like, well, that wine was inky or different. Oftentimes it's because it's a grocery store mass-produced wine that has these additives like mega purple and mega red. But I think we're living in an age of transparency. I think we're living in an age when people are demanding, rightfully so, to know what goes into their body and what is in what they're buying. And I often use the analogy of people walking into a grocery store, and most everything you're going to put in your body other than the produce aisle is required to have some sort of labeling.
Yeah.
In terms of nutrition and ingredients, but not alcohol. And so I think it begs the question, why? And I think it's also important to look at what's happening in the more evolved countries of Western Europe. And when I say more evolved, I'm referring to they have hundreds and thousands of years of wine culture and much more stringent wine laws and definitions of areas and protected regions, et cetera. And they have passed, as of last year, a really simple thing. Hey, put a QR code on your label so anybody can take a snapshot and they can open up a PDF on the web and show the tech specs of what's in the wine. Have you added anything? Is there residual sugar? Did you add acid? Did you add anything else? And that seems to me to be a really low-hanging fruit and not a big ask. Many wineries are already using QR codes to promote videos or to promote some other information to their website. And adding a really simple, basic thing like, hey, what's in this wine? And I'll give you another example. A few years back, because Big Hammer Wines is a relatively large buyer now of products, we used to work with a brand called Camus that most people recognize. We no longer work with it. And in no small part, because some years ago, when I asked the national salesperson, I said, this wine really seems to have changed over the years, and it's really, really sweet to the point of I don't think I can drink it, recommend it, or sell it anymore. Can you tell me how much residual sugar is in this wine now? And you know what he said? He said, that's proprietary information.
Whoa!
And I said, no, it's not, because you're asking me to buy the wine and then promote it and sell it to my clients, and I want to know what's in it. I demand to know what's in it. He wouldn't tell me. So I took a bottle and I sent it to an independent third-party lab that we use in Santa Barbara at the winery, called Vineyardist, VinQuery is what it used to be called. And Vineyardist does all the labs for many of the top wineries in California. And you know what? They sent me back a technical report, a lab analysis. That wine had more than 10 grams of residual sugar in it.
Whoa!
Camus Cabernet. Put that in perspective, Coca-Cola is about 30 grams residual sugar. A wine that's considered dry is, in the U.S., federal dry level is 2 grams residual sugar. Under 2 grams residual. So this is 5 times the level of what is considered dry. And I always kind of laugh when, we speak to a lot of our clients around the country, and they'll come to me and give me a frame of reference. And say, well, I really like that Camus wine. I like that dry red Napa style. And I have to stop them and say, that's not a dry wine, and it's not Napa style. That's a monochromatic paint by numbers wine that is sweet. So let's just make sure we're talking about the same thing.
That's funny. Well, that would clarify my position on labeling. Whenever I think of labeling, I think of labeling everything. And I just, there's so many things in wine that you can go crazy. I mean, 250 different subchemicals in white and 350 or more in a red. And I'm thinking, no, why do we need all that label? Now, if you're just talking major ingredients and major additives, I don't have a problem with that. Because
I think the Europeans are way ahead of us. They're light years ahead of us. And it's not just in wine or wine labeling, by the way. They're way ahead of us in glyphosate in farming. They're way ahead of us in organic labeling. And I mean, I spend probably 8 to 12 weeks in Europe, and I know a lot of people in my business that also travel to Europe quite a bit. And everyone I know says the food is so much better in Europe. And why? Well, because it's just being we're getting this industrialized, mechanized, mass-produced stuff increasingly by a small number of producers, and in this, again, not just wine, but in farming and corn and meat, and it all just tastes the same. Whereas there, they just have a much better system, and it seems to me to be much more transparent and honest. And we're behind. American law, in no small part because of the influence of lobbyists and money, is sort of supporting the status quo rather than embracing the future that is now. And yeah, I'm talking about additives in wine. People want and demand and should know what's in the grocery store wine they're buying. And it's only those large producers that are hiding. It's only those largest producers who don't want to reveal that they are manipulating the wine with acid, with sugar, with additives. And it's not a big ask, because I think if people actually had the option, and they should have the option to choose, they would be more supportive of a real farm system of artisanal family producers, which are begging for our help. They're demanding, because they're not going to survive if these mega producers and these mega distributors continue to overwhelm and absorb market share.
But the thing is, how do you get past those? How do you get, I mean, they are mega. It just in the definition alone tells you that they do control, and because of that, you have to break that to get them to change, to get Congress to change, because they are so large. It's a tremendous uphill battle, it seems.
Well, I mean, we've already seen, look, I've been doing this for 25 years, and so we've already seen dramatic change in interstate shipping laws. We've already seen cases go to the Supreme Court that supported that you can't discriminate against out-of-state wineries. You can't have an in-state winery, which is the Granholm decision, that says, you know, your in-state wineries can ship to consumers, but then the winery across state lines cannot. That impedes interstate commerce. So a lot of this stuff has fallen. A lot of this stuff, with logic and time, has sort of modernized. It's glacial, the pace at which it's happening. But I mean, the fact that there are still states in the U.S. that prohibit an adult from going online and ordering a bottle of wine in a post-pandemic country that prides itself on freedom and freedom of choice, and like you can't have an adult order a bottle of wine in numerous states.
Oh yeah,
and those states know who they are if they're listening, because they can't do it. But it's absurd. It's absurd. It's totally absurd. And you know, the people that defend the status quo are the ones that have something to lose. And so you have to ask, what is it that they're trying to protect? Well, it's their monopoly, and it is a monopoly.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to a lot of wineries around the country over the years, and some of them, and again, you're right, they know who they are. Some of them talk about the antiquated laws that they still go by. I mean, let's point a finger at Kansas. What was it? Just a few years ago, Kansas finally repealed the final step in prohibition so that they can start serving and doing stuff. I mean, it took them forever to get around to doing that, and there's still some states
we still have a ton of blue laws on the books. Those blue laws were things like no alcohol could be sold on Sunday. And bars or restaurants had to close and open at certain times. The closing is kind of generally supported in order to keep evening mayhem and drunkards off the street. There's a ton of things. There are still dry counties in the U.S. Right? There are counties that have outlawed alcohols completely because they are beholden to an antiquated idea of religion and that alcohol is sin. And that's sort of goes back to that bigger question of sort of the neo teetotalers and the people who are pushing their agenda for all alcohol is bad. They forget that we are social animals, and there is a benefit to carousing. There is a benefit to being with people, to relaxing. There are hundreds of papers that show the benefits of red wine in particular, and as a stress reducer, as a vasodilator, as something that brings people together in form of celebration. And this is good for society. It's good to combat our epidemic of depression and loneliness. There are tons of positive things that are often ignored when the headlines come across that, like the one that's been pushed in the last year, which espouses that no amount of alcohol is good for you. It misses the whole picture. It misses the picture, and it takes away individuals' personal liberty and responsibility. Do we have an adult population who's capable of deciding what they can handle and whether or not, if they like the taste of wine, that they can enjoy a glass without being scolded like school children?
What I think is a lot is the fact that those of us who are wine drinkers, those of the country who are wine drinkers, are the silent majority. And the key word there is being silent. The ones who are espousing the fact that no alcohol is good for you and you should stop drinking, all that, is really a very vocal minority, but they are vocal. And so we start seeing more and more stuff like that. And it's, now people are just used to hearing it, but I don't think, well, it is making some inroads, but not a lot. I don't think it's doing a big impact on the drinking in the country.
Currently, there are a couple things. First, those of us in the industry are hamstrung by the TTB, so the Alcohol Tax Trade Bureau. They prohibit us from making any claims related to alcohol and health or wellness. So we cannot go out and make any of those claims. So it's got to be somebody else. And so there is, in fact, a PR firm and some other folks who are in our sort of camp who have currently promoted something called Come Over October. And it is specifically this counter argument to Sober October and Dry January, that the teetotalers and the people who are afraid of alcohol have initiated successfully globally. And the idea of Come Over October is to say, you know what, we are adults and we can celebrate responsibly, and we love wine because it's the best beverage in the civilization and in the history of the world. And you should come over and have a glass of wine with us. And if we weren't in different cities, we would have a glass of wine right now and be having this conversation.
True. Is this Come Over? I've never heard of this Come Over October. Is this? Did they have a website, or is it just something that's? Yeah.
You go look it up. I don't know what the website is. It's exactly what I just said. ComeOverOctober.com. it's new this year in its first year, and like I said, I hear all this banter around Gen Z doesn't drink alcohol anymore. There are too many options, and they're doing sober October. Not, I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe it's true, and some. I mean, whoever's doing those statistical inquiries, I don't know, but I'm of the opinion that if people have never drunk fine wine, quality wine, and if people don't know that wine has been an important part of our whole history and really the definition of civilization and our evolution over the thousands of years, then they're just missing this huge part of what it means to be human. They're missing this huge opportunity to taste the bounty, the beauty. And just the same way I feel sorry for someone who thinks eating an unripe baseball tomato from the grocery store is the definition of a tomato. Like, if you haven't had perfect summer tomatoes off the vine, and you don't know that tomatoes are one of the greatest fruits in the world, then it's hard for me to have a conversation with you. Similarly, if you don't know what eyebrow-raising wine that moves the spirit and touches the soul and impacts the life in a positive way, I don't know how to have that conversation with you. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, exactly. The tomatoes is a good example. My wife is constantly saying that all tomatoes are now is this big red things with seeds in them, and that's about the extent of it. She said there's no taste to them anymore. There's no enjoyment in it. It's just a big round red thing, and you mentioned that, and that's why I chuckled, because it's so true. There seldom, if ever, are you able to find here in the States. I mean, you're traveling over to Europe, but here in the States, to find a good tomato, unless you happen to find one that is on a vine that hasn't been messed with and tick the thing off and pop in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, we could go in a lot of directions here, but I can tell you that I have been on trade missions for exporting and supporting the California agriculture. So I went on a trade mission with the Secretary of Agriculture in California to China and Vietnam a few years ago. And so we were promoting wine, and some of the other participants had pistachio farms and peach farms and almond farms. And you know what I learned in that trip? That these peach farmers in particular, they don't sell their grade A produce in the U.S. Their best peaches go to Japan and Taiwan.
Oh, really?
Where those consumers are willing to pay a premium. And I've been there. I've been to Japan. I've been in these grocery stores, and they're presenting these American peaches. Like, that's one of the greatest gifts, nicest things you can give someone, is a box of like four California peaches that might sell for $50 to $100.
Whoa!
But they are the best, most perfect peaches you ever had in your life. They don't even sell them in the U.S. They ship to grocery stores B and C. So you'd have to go to a farmer's market or overseas. And that's why I go back to, this is just part and parcel of what Americans are missing. And until they go travel, until they go see something else, until they taste the difference, and I'll bring it back to my website. How have we been in business for 15 years when 90% of businesses fail in the first 5? Because people come to Big Hammer Wines, they taste our wine, and 8 out of 10 of them refer us and come back because they'll never go back to grocery store wine again. They've tasted something that impacts them, that they recognize, wow, this is better quality and value than I've ever had from baseball tasting tomatoes that I get in the grocery store. That's the analogy. That's the analogy, and it's true. And I don't have to compel people. Everybody knows that. Everybody's had that experience. Like, no, I don't want another baseball tasting tomato. And I don't want another monochromatic wine that tastes exactly like everything else and is full of sugar and additives that they're hiding from me.
And you know, it's so true, because I've had wines, small wineries, and wines from all over the world and all that stuff. And the quality that you find in, I don't want to rule out the United States, because there are a lot of small boutique wineries in the United States that are making phenomenal wines. And so it's not so much just the United States, it's a matter that the market is flooded with these big box store wines that you don't get any, your baseball tomatoes again. That's really what it boils down to. But there's...
and that's what I said, at the outset. I said, Big Hammer Wines exists to take advantage of market inefficiencies. We take advantage of disequilibrium. What do I mean by that? Well, you've got high-quality wineries, like you just mentioned, small family wineries, that aren't a part of the mass oligarchy of distribution or a part of one of those top 8 producers that produce the boxed wine, the lower grocery store wine, and everything, every other, or 8 or 9 out of other 10 brands in the grocery store. So how do you find them? Well, that's where the disequilibrium is. You have to have someone to curate. You have to have someone to recognize the quality and be able to distribute it in a different way. That's what we do. We're distributing through UPS and FedEx, who don't take a margin, and we can sell $60 wine all day for $29.99 or $39.99. And it's 90+ rated quality stuff, not just our opinion. And it works. It's a model that works. It's not hard to explain. It's really simple. And people like it because they're getting exposed to stuff that's superior to what they would find in their nearby supermarket.
Or anywhere. How do you get wineries online? How do you online with you? How do you get wineries to work with you and go through you? Do you have them shipped to you and you distribute?
Yeah.
What's the model here?
The process isn't that complicated. I taste about 100 wines a week here in our offices, and we buy 4. So I went to Stanford University in Palo Alto, so I tell people it's easier to get into Stanford than it is to get a wine featured at our website. So we're highly selective. How do they find us? How do we find them? I mean, having been doing this for a long time, word of mouth. We buy pallets of wine. So when we find something we like, that can be very meaningful for a small family winery that's only making a few thousand bottles of wine for us to give them an order for 2,000 bottles. Just as an example, that can make a great year for them. They're celebrating at the holidays because we chose their wine. But we're just excited to share stuff that excites us, that moves us. Because it's funny, but doing this for as long as I have, I still get a joy. I still get a joy finding those diamonds in the rough. I still love sharing the stories of these producers and doing what I did at the outset of my career, which is connecting producers and people who love wine.
It sounds like a great way to make a living. You mentioned the sugar levels and the wines. I see your website. I'm looking at your website here.
Yep.
I see you do different types. You know, the vermouth, the sherries, the ports, and all that. These Portuguese ports, are these domestic? What do you try to stay in certain regions when it comes to certain types of wine, or do you branch out? I mean, there are some great ports other than Portuguese. Do you look at that also as an example?
Yeah, it's funny you landed on that because I would say people come to Big Hammer Wines, number one, for California wine. So Napa Cab and Cabernet blends is probably our number one category. Number two is Bordeaux, because we are direct importer from Bordeaux. Bordeaux is the number one wine region in the world, has the most famous wineries, and is an important category. And number three, which is personally very important to me, is, I'm one of 400 people in the world that has earned the title of Vin Italy Italian Wine Ambassador. And and being Italian American and speaking Italian and spending a fair amount of time in Italy, I'm really proud of our Italian collection. But you hit upon something that is also something I'm very proud of, which is our sweet wine collection. And to answer your question, no, I'm agnostic about where a wine comes from. I'm only looking for the quality. When we're talking about port wines, of course, Portugal sets the bar. Portugal is the global leader for fortified port wine. Right. That being said, I have some stuff in stock right now from a producer down in Stubble, which is down in the southern part. And we have like these 40-year-old muscats that are made in a similar way to port, but it's made with muscat outside of the Douro region in southern Portugal. And this stuff is mind-blowing. It is nectar of the gods. And a lot of people recognize Sauternes, because Chateaubriand Yquem is probably the number one sweet wine in the world. Yes. But you're paying a lot of branding. You're paying for a lot of brand perception there, which is something I'm always trying to avoid. So I like the real estate term. I tell people I'm looking for the Beverly Hills adjacent. I want Beverly Hills lifestyle and quality, but without the 90210 price tag. So that's where I'm looking for quality. So it doesn't matter where it comes from. If we're finding a sweet wine from Hungary that is lights out, that's what we're going to buy. So no, we're not just looking at traditional wine regions. I was just 2 weeks ago, I was in Slovenia tasting wine.
Oh.
I'm so excited about Slovenian wine. I can't wait to introduce more Slovenian wine to our clients. But I know it's going to be a slow road because people don't even know where Slovenia is. I honestly didn't know much about it. I didn't know much about Slovenia, but what an incredible story! What an incredible quality of wine. And if Austria has had an incredible run in the last 2 decades, there's no reason to think Slovenia will not follow because it's right there in terms of quality, and it's the neighbor to Austria.
Yeah, I've talked in the past about Slovenia and a rich history of wine there. It's some wonderful wines coming out of there. And since you're around the world and you're finding wines everywhere and you're doing all this stuff, do you look anywhere else in the United States? I mean, Texas and Pennsylvania and I can go on to all 50 states that are making some great wines. I'm wine curious. I'm a wine traveler. So I've been to 60 countries thus far, and wherever I go, I'm following my nose and my mouth in terms of eating and drinking my way around. I'm from Texas, so and I have family there, so
So yeah, I've probably tasted 300 to 400 Texan wines in the last 5 years. I'll give you a better example. Our warehouse is in San Diego, and there are wines 45 miles away in Baja, in northern Mexico. Right. There are wines 15 miles away in Temecula in Southern California. The fact of the matter is, tasting 100 wines a week for 20 years, the numbers are now over 100,000. The quality and value of those wines from those regions doesn't meet what we're working with. Mm-hmm. So Mexican wines have a strong domestic market, and there's plenty of American tourists that go down there for the weekend and buy bottles and come back, and they can get $30 to $50 or more a bottle.
Really?
The wines in Baja can't hold a candle to what we're buying from Chile and Argentina, or Spain, or Italy, or France. So that's where the problem is like, sure, I'd be happy to support local wines in Temecula or wherever from any region. I don't have a preference per se, but they don't match. I think there's a ton of great wines in the Finger Lakes region. There's a ton of awesome wines in New York. But when it comes to quality and price, that very important QPR ratio, they just don't match what we have access to. And you got to remember, our model is different. Our model is working directly with the wineries wherever possible, and buying volume to extract a deal. So, that's probably our most common price point wine is, finding those $60 wines that we can sell for 40 to 50% off. And it's hard to do that with some producers. And some producers in the Finger Lakes sell their wine very well, for instance, to all the tourists. Yeah. They don't need big hammer wines to come in and offer them a discounted price on pallets.
Good point. Yeah, I understand that now, and I suppose that would be true with a lot of wineries around this country, because we don't eat the wineries around the country. A lot of them don't make enough wine to sell outside of their state, and they sell out that way. So why would they need to discount it and have it distributed more? They make what they sell, and they sell all of it, and so would be counterproductive to try to distribute like you do. So I understand that. It's
that being said, these inflationary times have hit everybody. The consumers are tightening their purse strings, and I'll just give you a couple examples of what's going on right now in Napa. It's a buyer's market, and Napa Valley. I often sort of remind people, if they ever travel to Napa, like, did you taste the water or did you try to take a shower? Because it's really hard to get the soap off. They got this hard water that tastes funny, and so I often kind of joke when the times are bubbly. I'm like, man, those guys are drinking too much of their water. It's they can't think clearly and see clear because they're in a bubble, and they've got all these tourists from around the world that are willing to pay $150 for a bottle of wine. And I'm the bearer of bad news to say that wine's not worth 50, let alone 150, based on the type of stuff we taste and buy and sell every day. But currently, the harvest that's going on right now in 2024, there are Napa Valley vineyard owners who are calling winemakers I know and asking them to come pick the fruit off their vineyard for free.
Wow.
Because there's no market. There's no demand for these grapes that have been priced so high. And the backlog, the amount of wine that some of these producers have made and asking astronomical prices is unending, such that every day I get offered deals that are, you wouldn't believe. I got offered some sparkling wine that had a celebrity backer, had gold flakes in it, and they wanted to sell it for $95 a bottle. I'm able to buy that wine for $4 a bottle. It gets better. There's a Beckstoffer George III Vineyard Napa Valley Cabernet from a preeminent producer, small family winery that has got 100-point scores from Wine Advocate in the past. The Beckstoffer George III Vineyard is generally considered the second or third most famous and important historical vineyard in Napa Valley, next to Tokelon, which is where Opus One is sourced. And this wine had an original winery SRP of $325 a bottle.
Whoa.
I won't tell you exactly the wine or the price, but they are begging me to take it off their hands for about 30 cents on the dollar.
Oh my gosh.
70% below their SRP.
Gee.
So when I say it's a buyer's market, it's because it is, and it's because we don't have a regional focus. We have a global business. We're buying all over the world. We also do some exporting too, but we're able to see a ton of offers from all over and be very picky as a result. And this economy, this pre-election sputtering of sort of wondering who's going to win, blue or red, has created this buyer's market that I see come and go in cycles all the time. Doing this for as long as I have, I just go back to how we started this conversation on what happened in Prohibition and the teetotalers 100 years ago. And it's just that reminder. Doesn't anybody read history anymore? Doesn't anybody remember what happened? Because none of this is new. It's just repeating in cycles.
If people can learn from it, then, but if you start eliminating statues and stuff like that and try to change history, then you don't learn from it. I had to throw that in there. It's the sore point with me. I noticed one thing here, that we've been talking about all the wines you have and all the different ways you get the wine, but you have a food section on your site too, and you've got truffles and salt. You've got a lot of artichokes and different gourmet things on your food site. What brought that about?
That's right. It's actually a relatively new addition, only in the last year or so. It's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's because, quite simply, we have become curators of taste. We have demonstrated over many years that I don't know. I'm going to sound kind of a braggadocio, but our tastes are better. This is and I'm saying something that, like, well, if you're on the website, you could go see that there's thousands of testimonials. We didn't ask for it. People have given us thousands of testimonials and referrals. And so people who are already engaged, our engaged audience of people who love wine, who are wine curious, also tend to be foodies. I don't think you become a fine wine person who appreciates quality, taste, regionalism, of diversity of flavor, without also appreciating diversity of food flavors.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Being Italian American, direct importing Italian wines, we started selling some gourmet Italian food products as a complement to the wine.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. Yeah, I mean, why not? And it's true. I mean, people who enjoy fine wine tend to apply those same standards to food. I know I tend to catch myself doing that too. And, if you can find yourself a good gourmet seasoning for your meals or stuff like that, like you're offering, it's a big plus. So thank you. That's a good idea. Mike, you're sitting in the background quiet tonight. Is there any questions or any comments you want to ask Greg here?
I don't have anything, unfortunately. Thank you, but no, just an interesting discussion. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. No questions.
Sure.
There's the website is phenomenal. I mean, there's very complex. There's a little bit of everything in there, and actually, I get to see what you look like too from the website. Here you are. Any last thoughts for us tonight? I'd really like to get another phone conversation with you and talk about prohibition and what it's done and where it is, how it is repeating itself now, and also get into the concept of wine being so bad and how it, that stuff. I really would like to have another conversation with you, especially about prohibition, because I've talked about prohibition quite a few times, and you're seeing things happening now that is just really scary when it comes to that. So,
yeah, I think that is. I'd be happy to have another conversation with you, and I think that is definitely something that is repeating, and it's complicated. It's not black and white, but
no.
As I said, if I had to kind of put a bow around it, I've kind of seen a lot of this happen before. How do I think this is going to resolve? I think there's always going to be people with differing opinions, and I think the people who are trying to legislate or preclude people from having access to wine, I mean, I think they're inevitably going to fail, as they did 100 years ago. And and given that wine has been a part of culture, human culture, for 3,000, maybe 7,000 to 8,000 years, to go all the way back, I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Not anytime soon. Anyway.
What is changing is the buying and selling of it, and also in some ways the production changes, and hopefully that's for the better. But yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile to kind of review and revisit where we were, if only to know better about where we're going.
Yes, I really would. I'd like to have another conversation with you while what your purpose is to get a hold of me originally. I'll go through him and we'll set up another date coming up in the springtime or something like that. If we can find a time when you're not gallivanting around the world,
yeah. Well, I do travel a lot, but always happy to chat about the business I love.
No, I can tell that. It's a passion that you show very well in your conversations and stuff. Well, before we leave, give us website, contact information, everything. So if people want to go to Big Hammer Wine and start becoming part of your client list, then give us all that information.
Yeah, it's super simple. BigHammerWines.com is my last name in Italian. That's what it means. And we operate a wholesale direct-to-consumer wine business from Southern California. Taste wines, 100-plus wines a week. We only buy 4. And we operate daily deal email list, and you can tell us if you want to sign up for a daily, weekly, monthly communication, whatever you want. And currently, for the fall, I know that if you sign up with us, you can get $50 off your first order over $300. So that's an incredible seasonal incentive. And I hope you'll be like many of our other customers over the many past years, which is once you find us, it's pretty hard to go back to paying full retail in the grocery store.
And holidays are coming up, so they would be good gifts too. You can, put together a case of wine and be some nice gifts to hand out at a reduced price, so you're not paying a tremendous amount of money for wines that are very good and people will enjoy for the holidays. So there's a good way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, our if you look at our testimonials, our clients are the heroes in their wine, among their wine friends and families, because they're scoring deals and bringing the best wine to the party. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. The website's fantastic. You can end up losing yourself on this. What's the term? Going down the rabbit hole on your website here. There's lots and lots of stuff on it.
We have a very deep blog. So there's travel tips on where to stay and where to eat in Europe and Napa and elsewhere. And then we have a YouTube channel too, where I am reviewing a lot of the wines that we select.
Yeah, fantastic. So, yeah, it's a great way to spend a rainy afternoon or something if you're not sure, and a good way to pick up some wines at good prices. Greg, thank you so very much for taking your time today.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate your time, and enjoyed the conversation, and hope we'll be in touch again.
Yeah, I would look forward to it. Like I said, in the springtime, we can probably get something going here and talk a little bit more about, some other topics we didn't fully cover tonight. So thank you. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Good night.
And you too now.
Bye.
Bye now.
All right. Let's see.
Oh, fun. I always enjoy conversations like that. He's, very knowledgeable, and it's fun having conversations like that. Passionate.
Passionate.
Thank you. That is an excellent word for him. Yeah. ComeOverOctober.com. Going to have to check that out. We'll talk about that because you're hearing, like you said, dry January, dry October. I mean, it's, we got 2 dry months now, and then, we don't have anything that promotes wine. So Come Over October. We'll check that out. And if anybody's out there listening, you want to check out Come Over October. I guess it's .com. I haven't looked it up or anything. Mm-hmm. Did you while we were talking?
No, I wrote it down. I've got like
me too.
20 or 30 tabs open. I could pick one of these. There's just
I do the same thing. I get the whole bar up at the front. I can't even tell what they are because they're so small.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Toast to togetherness this October. So, has missions, bring wine to life. So definitely, encourage wine drinking and enjoying it. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's quite a bit. Quite a bit on there.
Good. Check it out, people. ComeOverOctober.com. It is .com, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, it was fun tonight with Greg. That was a good conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And and my engineer brought me in a wine partway through. So let me tell you what it is. Imagery. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon, 2021. Where's the alcohol? 13.5% alcohol. It's comes out of Ripon, R-I-P-O-N, Ripon, California. I have no idea where Ripon is. I'm not familiar with it. Maybe they created a new little town up there. But It's a pleasant Cabernet, not overpowering. We've had this before, engineer and I, and I think it's like a $20 bottle of wine, and it's got some good flavors, good color. It's not real heavy in acid, which is pleasant when we're a good balance, though. I mean, some wines tend to overpower in acid. Good balance. It's got the acid there, but not overpowering. Very pleasant wine. Imagery, Imagery. So
I've memorized. I've memorized the locations of cities in California.
Oh yeah,
and
you're very good.
That town, thank you, is east of San Francisco, northwest of Modesto. So that gives you an idea where it's located.
So it's up Sacramento, just sort of south of Sacramento.
Is it? Yeah, Stockton. It's between Stockton and Modesto. I'm trying to find the little highway that it's on, but it's not labeled here. Interesting. Golden State Highway is what it's off of.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. I know pretty much where that is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Never heard of Ripon. Huh.
Yeah.
Small town.
It is south of Sacramento, though. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Quite a ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there. Little town.
Good. So it's more in the valley there than it is over in the hills on either side. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's an interesting cab. Not real powerful. Not one that you write home about, but it's one that's very pleasant. So, just pass it on since you brought that in for me.
Sure.
So we're done for another week. We don't have a guest right now for next Thursday, but we may before next Thursday gets here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of them I'm going to get in touch with and see if they want to take over that slot. So keep up with this. We'll let you know.
Yeah, for sure. So
and then, what's it?
20, 8:20. Okay. Okay, so the next show will be next Thursday, as you said, the October the 10th.
October the 10th.
7 p.m. Eastern time.
And today is first day of Rosh Hashanah, is how it's pronounced. Jewish holidays. So, happy holiday to all of our Jewish listeners and friends out there. Not being Jewish, I'm not sure what the holiday is and what it encompasses, but I think a day of fasting and then they can celebrate at sunset. I'm not sure. I'm not going to venture any more than that. But for all our Jewish friends, happy holiday.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I think we're done for tonight.
Okay. I'm very familiar with all of the different religions and customs.
Oh, yeah, that's another one of your fortes. Yeah.
Yes, it's the New Year in Judaism. It's the New Year in Judaism is Rosh Hashanah. So,
okay. So this is a happy
Jewish
New Year, basically.
Yeah, Jewish New Year. It's a fall holiday. Takes place at the beginning of the month of Tishrei. So there you go.
What Jewish year is it? Like 50?
Oh my gosh,
54 something.
I just cleared out memory wise. Let me see. If I can go back. October 2nd lasting through. Oh, it only lasts till the evening of October 4th. Wow. 94 paragraphs later. Page 400. Origin. See page 600. Okay. That
didn't say.
That is I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but I best not. No. Anyway,
it seems like they would list that toward the beginning if it's a new year.
Think it would. Think it'd be easier to find.
Yeah.
Exodus, Leviticus. Yeah. Anyway, origin. No clue. Gosh, where is it?
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Or Hashanah, is it?
Hashanah. Yeah.
To all the Jewish community out there.
Okay.
And
Wow. Nothing in there. I'm sure, by this time next year I'll find it. And we'll get.
You'll pop it up, yeah.
Because it'll be over by the next show, so
it will be, yeah.
It's not a long
only from now until tomorrow night, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of, we'll close the show out for now, and move on with our weekend plans and whatever you have. Have a good weekend and be safe and. Whatever you got to do, just make the best of it. And we'll talk to y'all next time on All About Wine. Yep.
And if you're so inclined to the Red Cross for the hurricane
definitely
victims, that's good cause. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening. Yeah. Be safe. We'll see you next week.
This concludes tonight's broadcast of All About Wine with your host, Ron. For show information, links to All About Wine on Twitter and Facebook, or to be a guest on this show, visit the show website at www.allaboutwinebtr.com. Archived shows are available for download on iTunes or on our show page at blogtalkradio.com/allaboutwine. Thank you for listening.